Hey, welcome to another edition of Washington Desk. I'm your host, Neil W. McCabe, and I'm thrilled that you're joining us. And I have a fantastic show for you. We're going to have Jim Paff of the Conservative Caucus. We're going to have a New Jersey update with Mark Naughton and a special guest from New Jersey. And then we're going to have some other surprises. But first, let's go to Jim Paff. Jim, thank you very much for joining us at Washington Desk.
Thanks for having me on, Neil. Good to see you, my friend.
So Jim, why are Americans going to fall in love with tariffs?
You know, it's interesting. Scott Bessent is correct. There's going to be a little bit of a shaky moment early on. But I think the reason that they're going to listen, I come from a very libertarian perspective on all this. I'm an Austrian economics geek. That's where I stand on economics. But I've always had this negative with your strict libertarian idea that tariffs are bad to raise at any time. We're in a post-war arrangement where we kind of roughly told ourselves, listen, the whole world's in an uproar after World War II. There are many countries in Europe in particular that are having problems. So let's just, and we've got the economic engine going. We weren't harmed by all the bombs and all this kind of stuff. Let's get the economic engine going worldwide. And so we set up these tariff arrangements or trade arrangements of any sort that gave favor to countries outside the United States. And, you know, it didn't harm us quite as bad as people noticed for many decades. But in this day and age, we're in a position where Ross Perot's giant sucking sound actually happened. Do you remember he was against NAFTA, and when he was running for president, he called that the giant sucking sound because he predicted that all of our manufacturing would go elsewhere. People are going to like this because we're going to readjust these arrangements back into at least an equal playing field.
Jim, they treated Ross Perot like he was a nutter, like he was some freak from another planet, and they ridiculed him on Saturday Night Live, and all the guys make jokes about Ross Perot. And then he turned out to be absolutely correct. And when we were growing up, you probably remember like all the Marxists at college or the Marxist teachers you'd have in high school or professors. You'd always say, hey, how come all these communist countries suck, right? And they'd say, oh, remember what they used to always say? Oh, but real communism has never been tried. If we tried real communism, that would be different. This is some kind of political hybrid. And that's what I feel about free trade. I believe in free trade, right? Free trade between Connecticut and Massachusetts, free trade between Missouri and Kansas, right? As long as they're not like raiding each other like in the bloody wars. But if a free trade agreement should not be 1,000 pages. If a free trade agreement is 1,000 pages, that's not free trade. Free trade is one sentence. There shall be free trade. Boom. But instead, you have this thing where, you know, George's Bank, the fisheries in off the coast of New England, the Canadians get the best of that. Minnesota sells more dairy goods to China than they sell to Canada. It's absolutely ridiculous. Before we go to my next question, bottom line, will the tariffs work, yes or no?
I think so, because I think Donald Trump is determined to follow through with it. And if he will, and by the way, Professor Peter St. Onge, who's of Heritage, he's got a fantastic website. He made a great argument about this recently. You do have to write out something, but it will even itself out. And that tariff agreement that we have between Indiana and Connecticut, that's the one that Donald Trump's working towards around the world, the zero tariff policy. So just take a look at what's happening with Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario. He was just saying, hey, we'll be glad to drop our tariffs if Donald Trump will drop his. And I posted up on X, I'm like, hey, Doug Ford, that's exactly what Donald Trump said. Go talk to your prime minister, because he doesn't seem willing to do that. This is designed to get the playing field even. Donald Trump doesn't love tariffs just for themselves. This is about balancing trade out between countries. It's the right thing to do. And by the way, we got to get out of the WTO. We got to get out of all these international trade organizations because they're a big mess as well. This is not free trade that we live under. I don't care what anyone says about it. And it's a real frustration as I watch people who are on our side of issues get all into a huff. We do not have free trade like free trade ought to be. And that needs to be adjusted. Donald Trump's going to do it.
Hold on, Jim. You're like a runaway freight train.
I am.
So, second thing I want to ask you about is Tuesday, there was a special election for Florida 6, Florida 1, and the left was banging the pots and pans that Randy Fine, who's a great guy, I want to say he's a fine man, but that's, the headline writes itself. Randy Fine was the second Florida legislator to endorse Trump, despite his very close working relationship with DeSantis, which soured because DeSantis refused to back one of his anti-Semitism bills. So when he was in the state legislature, the state house, the state rep, Fine is the guy who actually sponsored the first anti-Disney legislation for DeSantis. When DeSantis went to Israel during his sort of proto-presidential campaign, Fine flew to Israel to show support and to be with him. Fine wins in Florida 6, the old DeSantis seat, the old Mike Walz seat, and then Jimmy Patronis, who's a fantastic guy, who was tagged. He was going to run for governor, frankly. And when Gates left or resigned from his seat, Patronis went to Florida 1, the Gates district, and that basically cleared the field for Byron Donalds. Interestingly, Mike Walz was also considering a run for Florida governor, and so his getting the job in the White House and Patronis running for Congress really cleared the field for Byron Donalds. But what is the lesson for people who are looking at these wins, Florida 6 and Florida 1, sir?
Well, the first lesson is Florida's elections are clean. Let's just start with that. Like, you don't have to sit around and worry whether the results are going to seem fair and right. And I'm not saying I don't want to get into all the details of all the kind of fraud that is out there, but fraud's always in every election. Florida just has the laws that do it right. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. There are some that are going to say that the margins aren't as big as how Trump took these districts and whatever, how much they were took beforehand. It's a special election. It's a little bit less. Both Democrat candidates were trounced by 15 and 17 points. This is another solid victory for really the MAGA movement, and these are going to be two great people coming, or at least initially. Of course, I'm kind of black-pilled because I've seen a lot of people go bad, but these guys seem like they're going to be the right ones that we need.
I don't think Fine and Patronis are going to marry with the natives. They come from, not only do they come from red districts, but they come from very red backgrounds. Patronis' family runs a legendary seafood restaurant called Captain Anderson's in Panama City. And then Fine is very highly educated. And he was actually up to be president of one of the state colleges before he had his falling out with DeSantis. After he endorsed Trump, that was basically his way of saying, I don't think I want to be president of a state college in Florida for the next few years. The last question I want to ask you is, what are your Capitol Hill people telling you about Trump? Because you spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill. That's where I met you, and you were working in like the it was like the ice planet of Toth with the House conservatives,
Yeah.
And so, what are your buddies who are still on Capitol Hill or back on Capitol Hill? What are they saying about Trump? What's that buzz?
Listen, there is a encouraging fidelity so far to Trump himself. Like, you don't see a lot of dissension. You see Don Bacon going a little wild, and he's been a problem forever. There are a few others, but you don't really see this massive public defection from Donald Trump. What is lacking and what people are worried about, the tariff thing is worrying a few people, and they're not saying it publicly, but they're certainly feeling the pressure of it. And then you've got, sort of this establishment cardinals of the Appropriations Committee wing that still really does want the kind of government that we've had going on for a while. And they've been backing off a little bit, but they're ready to pounce whenever Donald Trump's political chops might get hit for whatever reason.
Hold on, Jim. How dare you say pounce? It's like, come on, man.
But then, listen, you just talked about it. I was on the ice planet of Toth. Tim Hulskamp, who I was working for, was literally Luke Skywalker and Hoth shooting the,
yeah.
I mean, there is a sentiment on Capitol Hill. I mean, I've said this again. I've said it on your show. The weakness of the Trump agenda is Republicans in Congress, and not every one of them. But that's what's lingering there all the time that we need to be aware of. So that is still there. Now, what's going to be encouraging is if we do get the DOGE cuts through a rescission package that is supposed to be coming soon, and if reconciliation goes the way that we want it to, that with the tax cuts and a few other things that they're planning on doing, it's going to be a big win for Trump, and it's going to put these people a bit in their place. We've got to take 2026. I know the Conservative Caucus is going to take 2026, really looking at where we can find advantages to get the right people, like the Fines and Patronuses, to come in. If there are any primary opportunities, we'll do that. But if there are any open seats where we can find good people as well, we're going to be looking to that. And that we just need to keep taking this step by step. Last thing, the Republican Party needs to adopt the Trump agenda broadly, and they can have better success, because we're not going to have any success moving forward. And Democrats are coming right back in to fill the void if we go back to the same old GOP politics.
No, 1,000 is spent. You're absolutely spot on, Jim. Thank you very much for joining us on Washington Desk. Next up, we will talk to Mark Naughton with his New Jersey update. See you after the break.
2 years ago, whatever was 100% of my traffic to my website, it's been crashed by 95%. That's stunning to me. Mostly Google has done it, but other actors as well. What's happening on a global basis, there's a war against free speech. It's not just an incidental thing, oh, we just want to shut somebody up. That's not it. This is an orchestrated, top-down war against free speech. All the things you have coming out of Worldview Tube and Weekend, etc., all of these things are expression of free speech. And I can dare say that their traffic has been hammered as well. If they're successful, these masters of tyranny, if these people are successful shutting down free speech, we're all dead at that point, basically, because that's where the killing is going to start. This is what's on the chopping block right now. The reason you look at this organization just is because you could get something out of it, right? You should look at this organization as an organization that needs to support just to keep free speech alive, period. Who are you going to turn to at this point if this voice was silenced? Where would you go? Newsmax? Give me a break. No. Fox News? No. So I want to encourage you, support the foundation, support Brandon's work here any way that you can.
Welcome back to Washington Desk. We're now at the time. Welcome back to Washington Desk. And this is our New Jersey update segment with Worldview 2 political correspondent Mark Naughton and the Green Party nominee for governor, Stephen Zielinski. Mark, Steve, thank you for joining us.
Neil, Mark, thank you for having me.
So, Mark, why don't you talk to me about some of the dynamics in New Jersey which make the Green Party interesting, and then Stephen will tell us if we're right or wrong. Is that fair? We'll put you on the spot, friend. Go ahead. You're up.
I think so. So I first became aware of Stephen at a NAACP rally inside of Princeton University just a few days ago, and the one thing I noticed is in New Jersey. Remember, Vice President Harris, she lost largely two major voter demographics, being young women and young men, both. Okay, actually more so young men, but she lost both of those, and that was devastating. Now I watched Stephen and the crowd, and it was mostly young people, largely at this meeting in Princeton, and he multiple times had the largest crowd reaction and applaud of these young people. So I'm just checking in with you, Stephen, and say, are you resonating with the young people, and why?
Well, that's one of the things I mentioned at the forum. Is I looked at the 2021 election results, and from the age of 19 to 29 was only 5% of the turnout, where most of it was obviously 55 and older. To me, that is, first of all, a strategic way to actually increase your voter population. But at the same time, the things that I'm talking about are resonating with the younger generation. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about eating healthy, or cancer, affordable housing. One of the things I didn't get into is the younger generation. You're getting out of college, and I imagine, for Neil and I, college was a lot cheaper back then than it is now.
Hold on,
So
Stephen.
we need to
Stephen, hold on. People don't believe me when I tell them that you used to be able to work all summer and get enough money to pay your room and board and tuition at a state school. That is true.
Yeah.
I lived that.
Yep.
That is
Yeah.
fantasy land today. But go ahead. I interrupted you, sir.
No problem. So the thing is this, they're coming out of college, and obviously they don't want to go back living with their parents. They would like to do what their parents did and their grandparents and stuff. So like, how do we make that possible? Now there's a multifaceted issue. We don't have enough housing in the state. Everything's gone up, electric, the whole nine yards. So we got to work it that making it possible for them. And one of the things I want to do for the state of New Jersey is their principal and interest on their loans will be deducted off of their taxes as either a deduction or a credit. I haven't figured that math out yet, but we got to give them a head start. We can't just not take care of them. And there's one area, and I got tons of things. You bring on the questions, and I'm here for you.
All right, Mark, you keep going, and then and then I'll have Adam.
Another one for you, Stephen, is Green Party, and again, this kind of with the young people. Really, it was Governor Murphy had these big offshore wind projects. Okay, President Trump canceled them immediately with his executive order. But I was following New Jersey politics then, and I still am, obviously. And it was sort of a bipartisan unity referendum against this governor. The people didn't want the offshore wind. They're saying it was an eyesore. It's going to kill tourism, and also it's killing the whales. But you are the leading. I guess I'm gonna call you the naturalist. What is the position with the wind offshore?
Okay, so I'm gonna blow your socks off. I don't believe in offshore wind. I believe in wind technology, but again, anything that we do has got to be a good ROI, and it's got to balance out the not just the aesthetics, but the natural habitat and the seafood industry. Our seafood industry is over $1 billion a year. And if we're going to, and obviously because of climate change and things of this nature, the natural habitat is moving farther and farther offshore. So they're losing money on this. We have God knows how many million square feet of warehouse space throughout the state of New Jersey. There is technology that's done that combines wind technology with solar, and we could put them across all our all our warehouses and not open spaces, but our warehouses, we could actually build canopies. Imagine you are going to take New Jersey Transit and you pull up and park your car there. That should be all covered with solar canopies. And right there alone, plug in your EV vehicle if you have it. Just the transmission lines coming off is wrong. Those are the things. It's got to make sense in 5 different levels, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, sure. I got last one from my side here is a little bit against your
Hold on,
opponent
Mark.
here.
Mark.
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah.
I need you to draw blood. You haven't even gotten close. I need you to draw blood. All right, go for it.
Okay. Trump killing the wind farms offshore, good or bad?
It doesn't. Quite honestly, I don't believe in them in the first place. So to me, that's a non-event.
Sounds
You
good.
support the Trump position. You support the Trump position.
Whether he did it or not, I wasn't going to go for it. So if that answers your question.
Well, it doesn't. You know it doesn't.
I know it doesn't.
I mean,
I stand on my own 2 feet. That's what I'm saying.
All right, here we go. There we go. I'm no one's man but your own. So the Green Party has had remarkable strength in certain pockets, like say Essex County, and the last governor's race in 21, that was a 3.2 margin for Murphy. If the Greens cut into the Democratic turnout, is there a possibility that you could hand the state to the Republicans, especially considering that, I'm not saying Trump won New Jersey, but like 6 or 7 points is kind of like a win, right? It's not the 15-20 that Republicans have dealt with for the last 35, 40 years. What say you, sir?
So again, it's going to be a 3-way race.
Right.
And I believe that we can, if I got the strong backing of the younger voters, the teachers, just the farmers in the state of New Jersey, the immigrants, all those different things, it's gonna be a 3-way. It's gonna be close. I know you don't believe that. But trust me, I'm going to be like the Seabiscuit back in 1936.
Okay, well, there you go. I didn't read that book or see the movie, so let me tell you.
Didn't see the movie?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
give you a little background. So Seabiscuit
So-
was a smaller horse who
Right.
had not a great trainer and not a great jockey, and pulled it out. And again, we're at the Depression. Now, I didn't grow up then. My dad was, during that
Right.
time, but it was it's that feel-good thing. And the state of New Jersey needs something like that. And it's about the issues. It's not
Well,
about
hold on.
red.
I don't know. I don't know if that horse was really affected by the stock market crash. I don't know if he was ticked off about tariffs, the depression, and it's like it's a horse. So
Yeah.
let's just say this: we know you're going to have strength in sort of the fancier parts of New Jersey, right? Am I right in saying you'll have strength pulling from Essex County? Where else are you going to be strong? Where else are you going to be strong?
I think in South Jersey. One of the things that I'm bringing about is obviously Medicare for all. There's a bill in the Senate right now, and they're tired. They're tired of what's going on. They're tired of getting kicked away from claims, things of this nature. And we could actually reduce our taxes by doing this. And that's one of the things I'm working on right now. It's about not just saying, because again, some of the other candidates I'm going to be, are saying that I'm going to drop taxes 15%.
Don't be so nice.
Name them.
So Josh is actually saying that he's going to drop 15% of property taxes across the board.
Let people know who he is. Josh who?
Josh Gottheimer.
Very good.
Josh Gottheimer. Did you hear? But how is that going to happen? And my thing is, it's either, if you're not bringing in major revenue into the state to counteract that, then it's a numbers game that's not really going to happen. One of my goals, again, and if give me a couple seconds, and I told Mark actually saw it, is our electric problem in the state. We know that as of June 1st, our electric bills are going up 20%. The problem is that the regional grid, PMJ, basically jacked up the prices because they're not getting enough supply. Steve Sweeney, I know you had Ed Durr on before, and he was like, I don't think green energy works. And I disagree. I've been in the solar industry for over 8 years. I've sold in California, I've sold in Texas, I've sold in Ohio, Virginia, all over the place. One of the things is we need to actually bring manufacturing into the state. So I'm looking at a couple different solar panel companies to come into the state and actually create this that are U.S. made.
I gotta cut you off here just to say, but to summarize what you're saying, and I want to be fair to your point, is that if you can reform the energy grid, restructure it, and add, say, solar to create cheaper energy, that would facilitate an expansion of manufacturing and those jobs and those property taxes and the whatnot. Is that fair?
Yeah, and it brings in more revenue into the state as well, obviously.
And so
that
actually
like, adds to taxes. So I'm sorry.
You should be wearing a MAGA hat. That sounds pretty Trumpian, doesn't it?
I deal with issues. I don't deal with red or blue. So like, I knew you're going to keep calling me over. I'm good with this. I like this.
All right. So, Steven Zielinski, thank you very much for joining us at Washington Desk. Where can people find you on the socials?
So I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, X. My website is Zielinski.
Okay, go ahead.
Zielinski, the number 4 green 2025. So it's easy to look up. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Hey, thank you very much for joining us. And Mark,
thank you.
You hit it out of the park. Another great segment by the great Mark Naughton, Worldview 2 political correspondent. Thanks, Mark. Where can people find you on the socials?
X at Mark Naughton 9. Should be right below on the label, and that's where you'll find me, McCabe.
And I hope they tune into your Trump Tuesday space every Tuesday from 8 to 11 in the East.
Yes, big guests, 8 to 11 on X. We do it live, and it always is something to experience, McCabe.
Fantastic. After the break, we'll talk to Katie Glenn, who's with the Susan B. Anthony list, and we're going to talk to her about the effort to defund Planned Parenthood after the break.
What if there was a product that could help you control cravings, burn more fat, boost your metabolism, promote healthy blood glucose levels, lower inflammation, optimize insulin sensitivity, support healthy blood lipid levels, and support healthy blood pressure? Introducing Bellatrim.
My wife has been taking Bellatrim now, and she said, Brandon, we have really got to promote this because people don't understand this isn't just about a comprehensive weight management. It will help regulate your blood glucose levels. It will lower bad cholesterol. Overall, it's good for your cardiac health. And she said there's a lot of science behind this.
G'day, I'm Dr. Mark Miller for Bella Grace, and I'd like to have a chat with you about Bellatrim, our comprehensive weight management product. Now, most people early on will register a reduction in cravings associated with Bellatrim. How does it do that? Well, it does it by changing the levels of hormones that are associated with either hunger or satiety. It lowers the levels of ghrelin, a hunger hormone, and it raises the levels of GLP-1, the satiety hormone. There is an absolutely fascinating action on a metabolic switch called AMP kinase, AMPK. AMPK is associated with the preferential burning of fat as a metabolic fuel. And as a result, you have a reduction in visceral fat and reduction in waist circumference. It also helps regulate blood glucose. Blood glucose is a huge factor in weight management. It also improves your microbiome. We do that by several ways. One, there's an ingredient in there that stimulates greater diversity. And the other one is prebiotics, FOS and GOS, that help feed the good bacteria, gentrify your microbiome. So, Bella Trim, comprehensive. Enjoy it.
To learn more about Bella Trim and other Bella Grace products, visit melissahousebg.com.
Welcome back. One of the organizations that I've always been thrilled to cover in my black market journalism career is the pro-life movement, and of course the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America organization. I've actually traveled with them to Montana as they were going door to door and rallying in front of the State House, and I've had the opportunity to interview them when I've been in different capacities and different media outlets. And it to me, it's always been this fight that we've been dealing with my whole life. And now after the Dobbs decision, it's now being brought to the states. But yet, Planned Parenthood is still cashing checks from the federal government. And so to talk to us about that is the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America Director of Legal Affairs, Katie Glenn. Katie, thank you for joining us at Washington Desk.
It's great to be with you.
So just for people who don't understand the state of play, I remember that more than 10 years ago, Capitol Hill conservatives were trying like a Dickens to defund Planned Parenthood. And what the Republican leadership would do is they would there was like certain bills like must pass, right? Obama must sign bills, right? To keep the government running or defense budget. And then there were bills that were like, don't pass. And so the defund Planned Parenthood would always be on the don't pass list. And for what it's worth, you weren't involved with this, but I actually covered, the heartbeat bill and how there was a pro-life organization. I won't name them, but I don't want it to be awkward for you in that community. But there was actually a national pro-life group that was responsible for blocking that heartbeat bill sponsored by Stephen King from coming onto the floor. And who knows what their game was. But for me personally, this is something that it speaks to who we are as a country and the soul of America. And so that's my soapbox. You're actually the guest. What is the state of play right now with Planned Parenthood and the federal government?
Well, right now, Planned Parenthood gets around $700 million a year from the federal government. The biggest percentage of that is through the Medicaid program. So they are getting reimbursed for services through Medicaid. That's $500 to $700 million each year. So when you think about what they actually do for their business, looking at their own annual reports, we see that almost everything they do is down, including things like contraception, which is what they run to Congress and say that is their most important thing. That's down. What's up is abortion and trans. So it is far past time to defund Planned Parenthood.
For people who don't appreciate what they do, and maybe just think of them as the country's largest abortion provider, what is their engagement on the contraception and the mutilation, the genital mutilation of children or adults for that matter?
Well, if you look at Planned Parenthood's annual reports, you can see they are now up to almost 400,000 abortions every single year. It's absolutely tragic. This is 40% of the abortions done in this country, and that is their main product. But they are increasingly becoming a major player in the issue of trans. They are now the second largest provider there. So regardless of what your issue set is that most animates you, of course, we are a pro-life organization. That is what they're doing with their money, in addition to electing pro-abortion politicians and bringing many, many lawsuits to undo the great work of our pro-life politicians who pass strong pro-life laws.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you about some of the legal stuff, but first, I don't know how familiar are you with the legislation and legislation that is could be brought to either the House or the Senate floor with this Republican-controlled House and Senate. What kind of bills are you looking at, and what would they do?
Well, the pro-life movement is asking Congress to defund big abortion through the reconciliation process. Many of your audience are probably familiar with the Senate's 60% threshold. 60 senators have to agree on anything for it to go to the president. There is a process called reconciliation that actually only requires a simple majority. So this is possible. I think it's important for the public to know if you want to defund big abortion, it is possible through the reconciliation process. And that is what hundreds of pro-lifers went to Washington, D.C. to ask for during our fly-in day last week.
And how many people flew in? And why don't you describe your personal experience meeting with leaders on Capitol Hill?
We had about 350 pro-lifers from all over the country come in, meet with offices, drop by, talk to their staff, and the enthusiasm was great. A lot of these people who came in were college students, so they have great energy. They're very excited about the possibility of actually getting this across the finish line, and we're seeing great enthusiasm from members of Congress, really feeding off that energy. So it's an exciting time. The pro-life movement is unified on this goal, and we look forward to Congress getting it done.
Yeah, and your own personal, were you there for it also?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah, so
I was
talk to me
there.
about, I don't know if you want to mention, it's like, if you wanted to, talk to me about a conversation you had with a congressman or a senator or a senior staffer that gave you hope or frustrated you. What was, just share with us what it was like to be there on Capitol Hill working this.
Well, you can get a lot of highlights on our website, SBA Pro-Life America. It's sbaprolife.org. For me personally, I met with Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. He has been a pro-life champion for many years in Congress. And he said, we're ready to get this done. So it's exciting to hear that from somebody who's been such a strong leader, that he feels like the momentum is there. And I think it's important to remind your audience, and we reminded the staff and the members of Congress that we met with, that this was tried in 2017 and it fell one vote short. Famously, John McCain gave the thumbs down on the floor of the Senate. It had absolutely nothing to do with pro-life. It was about Obamacare, but it tanked our efforts. We came one vote short 10 years ago. We can get it across the finish line now, and that's what we're hearing from a lot of members of Congress.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And so for people to understand, the reconciliation is this idea that the budget can't be blocked. Like the government has to keep going. And so you can delay through a process called the filibuster in the Senate. So there's 2 votes in the Senate, 1 to close debate, and then that allows you to have a floor vote, but you need 60 votes to close debate. So even though you pass legislation with a simple majority, if you have 41 votes, you effectively can block legislation from even coming to the floor. And so as a constitutional principle, they basically created legislation, I believe it's the Budget Act of 1974, when they created this morass that, we haven't passed a real budget in like 15, 20 years. But it's supposed the script was written in 1974. Part of that script is that you would have reconciliation just so you couldn't have somebody just shutting down the whole government. And because of this reconciliation, it passes with a simple majority. A lot of things can be done in this bill if it's done correctly. And so are there any kind of bird rules or technicalities that you guys have to resolve, or what is the actual legislation that you're proposing for the reconciliation bill?
So it's very important with reconciliation. It has to be focused on the budget. So you cannot push through policy agenda items. And that's when you reference the bird rule, that's what this is about. Is this about the budget, or is this a policy issue that's non-germane to the budget?
Right.
So our focus, the language that was used in 2017 that got through the bird rule process. It made it to the floor. It made it to that final vote. That is the language that we are looking at because it has a proven track record of success.
That's fantastic. And you touched upon different lawsuits and legal things. Is there ongoing litigation or lawsuits that you want to let people know? Because I think a lot of people want to hear that the pro-life movement is alive and well and moving and advancing and making that post-Dobbs transition to save the lives of so many of these unborn children.
Well, there's some exciting things happening in the courts right now, in particular, the new Trump administration flexing its muscles. So, one thing this week, the Trump administration changed the Biden administration's policy on Title X funding. Joe Biden's team had defunded from the Title X program Tennessee and Oklahoma because they refused to require physicians to refer counsel for abortion. In the case of Tennessee, Joe Biden's team actually gave Tennessee's Title X dollars to Planned Parenthood in Virginia. So that money is being restored to the state. The states had been suing Joe Biden administration to get that money back. Now it's been restored. South Carolina also was before the United States Supreme Court this week in a Medicaid case of their own. Several years ago, now almost 8 years ago, South Carolina passed a policy saying that abortion providers were not eligible for state Medicaid because abortion is the primary object that they sell. They are not good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Planned Parenthood went and sued. There are only 2 Planned Parenthoods in the whole state. There are hundreds of federally qualified health centers and other healthcare providers who accept Medicaid in the state of South Carolina. But these 2 Planned Parenthood businesses sued, saying, you cannot kick us out of the program. You must give us taxpayer dollars. Finally, the state of South Carolina and we, the taxpayers, got our day in court this week. And we hope that SCOTUS decides with South Carolina that these companies that are so litigious cannot force their way into getting taxpayer money forever if the state says that they are not a good steward of our money.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm thrilled to hear that you guys are still in the fight. And a lot of people thought that this thing was over, but the thing about the left always runs through the tape. And I think sometimes conservatives will coast and basically count their blessings and or count their winnings rather before they actually the game's over. I'm really glad to see that you guys are running through the tape. Katie Glenn, the director of legal affairs for the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. Where can people find you on social media and online?
I'm on social media at @KatieGlenn_ or at SBA Pro-Life.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, I really appreciate you joining us at Washington Desk. Thank you.
Thank you.
After the break, I'm going to talk to Republican strategist Andy Wong, who is a graduate of Columbia University, and that is one of the 5 Ivy League schools targeted by the Trump administration, not only for their DEI, but also for their sort of tolerance of anti-Semitism. But there's a lot going on because these schools get hundreds of millions of dollars. Harvard University actually gets $9 billion a year, but they also have huge endowments. We're going to dig into all of that after the break with Andy Wong.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity. All from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Would you like to gain access to over 20 years of my radio shows, TV shows, my books? I've written 15 books, and most of those books are ebooks now, and we have conference DVDs, conferences where we filmed our conferences at the Ozarks, literally starting 20 years ago. It's all available in our archived vault. All you have to do is go to worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and for a reasonable monthly fee, you gain access to over 20 years of Christian worldview programming, news, information, books, documentaries, and a powerful search engine. And folks, it's a great way not only to educate yourself, equip yourself, but it's a big way that you can help fund our continuation as a broadcast network. Please check it out. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, and help us continue pushing out a Christian worldview.
Welcome back. My next guest, Angie Wong, is a political insider and Republican strategist, and she's going to talk to me about what's going on with the Trump administration and the colleges and universities, specifically the really fancy, expensive ones in the Ivy League. And I believe she went to one of them. Angie, thank you for joining us at Washington Desk. You went to one of those fancy schools, didn't you?
Thank you for calling me out on that. Yes, I'm an Ivy Leaguer.
Let's just get it out. Let's put it all out there. Cards up. Cards up.
That's right. That's right. I'm not ashamed of it. When I went, I was certainly, I don't know how I came out as a conservative out of an Ivy League school these days, but I did. I guess I held my ground. Here's the thing. On these campuses and in the classroom, they used to teach you how to think, to do critical thinking. Now they're just teaching you ideology and what to think. That's the problem that's going on in all of these Ivy League schools and coming out of the teachers' colleges as well. That's the breeding grounds of a lot of this like woke DEI, ideology that's being pushed onto very young, palatable minds. And that's why President Trump, I don't blame him for killing a lot of these additional federal fundings going to these universities. They're not what they used to be, Neil. I'm just so embarrassed by them.
No, it's become indoctrination, and they're turning these kids into these stooges, and they're basically promising them a world that does not exist. And for many of them, I imagine it's a shock. But for all the rich kids, it's like, whatever, that doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want. They're rich kids, so who cares?
They're not all rich kids. What we're seeing in a lot of college campuses is that almost half of them are foreigners. So at my old alma mater, Columbia University, close to 50% of the student body, they're not Americans. And so it doesn't surprise me that you have all these uproars, because one of the romances about going to a place like Columbia is that, free speech really rules there, and protests. I mean, remember, a lot of these college campuses have historical protests. So I think that's part of it. But if any of these foreign students went back home, I promise you, they probably don't have free speech there, and they can't just protest and light, buildings on fire. So I don't know, maybe they're just getting it out of their system.
That's funny. I was just going to say that basically these are just their wild years before they go back to whatever totalitarian regime they came from. There are 5 schools that are being targeted by the Trump administration: Brown, Princeton, Columbia, Harvard, and UPenn. And what's remarkable about them is that some of them get an extraordinary amount of money, but then you juxtaposition it to their endowment. So, first of all, Harvard, right? Harvard's the big H, right? That's the H bomb. That's, of course, but they get $9 billion a year from the federal government, but they also own like hospitals and stuff they have businesses that are designed to rake in cash, and then I imagine a lot of that is research. But they also have an endowment that, as of publication, their endowment's $51 billion. Let me just go down the list. Okay, so Brown gets $510 million. Their endowment's only 7.2. Columbia, $400 million a year, and their endowment's 15 billion. Ange, you need to write a check. You and the girls need to get together and maybe sell some cake or lemonade.
Absolutely. I don't know why they keep calling me for annual alumni checks every year. I mean, they don't
Yeah.
need my $20, right? So, no, I agree with
Well,
you. Like,
they're never going to make 16 billion without our help. All right, Princeton has the $34 billion endowment. I don't see I couldn't see what their government. You may have it. What they get from Uncle Sugar every year, and then UPenn 175 million a year, and their endowment is 21 billion. So UPenn's kind of like they're like the Pikers. I know they're very close to Biden, but they didn't need Uncle Sugar's money because of all the money they were raking in from the Chi-Coms. I would guess that UPenn probably raked in more Chi-Com money than any of the others. But and I will say, let me just get a dig in. Of course, Brown was founded with slave ship money. Slave ship money.
was
By
it?
the way,
I didn't know that. I did not know
the
that. I
lar-
could talk.
the largest
Yeah,
slave ship fleet in the United States, like 300 ships, was the Brown family of Providence. And when they banned the importation of slaves, they had to roll that capital into something else. And so they stole plant blueprints of plants in England. And that's why the first factories were in Rhode Island, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, to be exact, because they were basically rolling over their capital to something else. And so I just love reminding people. I love reminding people that Duke was founded with cigarette and tobacco money, and that General Motors was put together with whaling money. But anyway, that's just
well, that's the
these are
historian
my
in
quirks.
you. Yeah, that's the historian in Neil McCabe there. But back to UPenn. Remember,
Yeah.
you know what? Donald Trump should cut the funding for UPenn where he went. You know why? In the UPenn Club in New York City, they took down his portrait. I mean, he's president of the United States. They take down his portrait? Are you kidding me? So, of course, they should definitely lose their federal funding. But why do they even need federal funding? There's so much money coming in. And, let's just tip the scales even more. One of the reasons why Columbia University allows for all these protests, these pro-Hamas protests in their campuses, is because, let's see, they get over $1 billion from the Qatari family, right? And then when you look really deep at who is funding these endowments, it's sad to report, but they're not Americans. So you have all that extra layer, and they have money pouring in from everywhere and special interests pouring in from anywhere. And you know what? You can see it on the buildings, on how they name these buildings, right? You know where the money's coming from. And those are only the ones that want, the ego of putting their names on these buildings. Everywhere else, there's so much foreign money involved in this. That's why these these university presidents, they don't know what to do. Their hands are tied. They want the $1 billion coming from the Middle East, but at the same time, it's like, we have Jewish students to protect. What do we do there? So they go and hide. Well, that's not leadership, Neil. So these guys have to go. You got to bring in some hardcore MAGA university presidents in there just to clean it all up. We need some doging going on there.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that serving the two masters, the Democratic Party has the same problem. Are we going to placate our donors, or are we going to placate the voters? And for years, they were sort of able to straddle them both. But finally, in 2024, their subservience to the donors just completely disconnected them with the voters, which I would argue that's what happened to the Republican Party. And that's what opened the door for Obama, because the Republicans have become so linked or shackled to their donors. They weren't even they weren't connected to the voters anymore. But Penn is a problem. Princeton is a problem. Where do you think this thing is going? They now say all the right things, but it was a year ago when they had encampments, right? And do you know? I don't know this. I'm asking you. Do you know if there's still the active harassment on these campuses? I think it's died down. But what is your take on the active harassment of Jewish students and Jewish professors that was going on routinely at these campuses and others?
No, and absolutely. And I was stuck on the campus of Columbia just a year ago. I was there for my 20-year reunion when I was stuck there covering the protest, which was amazing. And I'll tell you what's going on there. The words are coming out of the university president's executive board and the president's own mouth, but there's been zero action taken, right? I mean, at the very least, they're checking ID cards before allowing students onto campus. That's about it. When you walk into some of the buildings, the interior and the lobby of these where education is supposed to take place, there are posters of missing Hamas hostages on these walls. You know how they for a while we had posters of Jewish missing hostages all over the place in our cities.
Right,
they have the
but
opposite.
but the Hamas people would tear them all down. And so you're saying that the Hamas is now they're now presenting themselves as the victim.
It's the wallpaper inside in the lobby, and you can definitely verify me with anyone who works in these buildings. It's horrible to see that these campuses in the interior is allowing this, because that's propaganda. I don't care what side of the fence you stand on. You can't put that kind of stuff up in where students are learning. You're actively taking a side, and then you're bullying those who don't hold the same position with you. And that's where, a lot of the Jewish students are getting harassed. I don't blame a lot of families and students for not putting their kids in Ivy League schools, because it's become a dangerous breeding ground, right? They are targets there. Why would you pay $100,000 a year to put your kids in harm's way? They really do need to work on campus safety and also the minds of the kids. You cannot designate an entire group to be the enemy, and that is what's being allowed right now in campuses. That's disgusting.
Well, I can't believe that you didn't try to engage these students, or is it because you were in your evening gown and your high heels?
No, I did. I tried to get into the encampment.
Were you in your pearls? Do you wear pearls when you return to Columbia?
I actually brought coffee to the yoga spiritual, hostage. I don't even know. It literally was a kumbaya moment on these campuses. And you see these young kids who just didn't want to take their finals. So they would join these arts and craft classes in the encampments. And that's what they were. And that's why I did lots of videos when I was there on campus, because it was so ridiculous. It was like, Woodstock. Right? It was the summer of love, and that's how they behaved and acted. Now, there were instigators, obviously, and we've, certainly reported on a lot of them that set things on fire. I mean, look, ultimately, if you're going to commit a crime, you're going to get arrested, right? And, right now it is the war of the narrative. Who's winning that war? I don't know yet, but I'm very happy to see that President Trump is yanking federal funds, because no American should be financing terrorism on these campuses. And that's exactly what all of this leads to.
Angie Wong, thank you for joining us at Washington Desk. How do people find you on all the socials?
Oh, just find me on one, please. Come on to my Twitter X. I still call it Twitter. It's at Angie Wong, and I'd love to hear from you guys.
All right, fantastic. That's going to do it for today. Thank you very much for joining us at Washington Desk. Please check me out on all the socials at Reporter McCabe and my articles at redstate.com. Until next time, take care.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House. This is Brannon House Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon House.
And welcome to the broadcast on this Friday night, April 4th, 2025. We're going to be joined by Neil McCabe, our D.C. correspondent, because we have a great emergency decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, a 5-4 decision in favor of Donald J. Trump. You need to hear about that tonight. Then we're going to go to an interview with Padilla, she's a former Muslim, worked in government, trying to deal with terrorism, Islamic terrorism, became a Christian, and is now a bold defender of Christianity, but also openly talking about the dangers of Islam, what it will do to our country. And I specifically tonight want to talk to her about all of these Islamic compounds and neighborhoods and planned communities being built. One in California, I'm going to show you for the first time tonight, a big, huge mosque. And then, of course, Irvine, Texas, Dallas, Epic, they're in Plano. I'm talking about all of that. And then Candace Owens. Is this lady unhinged a little bit? We are going to show you some video clips by her defending one of the guys that's been out there promoting the Palestinian movement, the Hamas movement. And he's not even from here, folks. And she somehow claims that we are damaging his right to free speech. Well, he's not even a citizen. He's not even a citizen. And what is he doing over here? Is he trying to underpin our constitutional republic or incite groups and encourage groups and give credibility to groups that are seeking to bring down our Western culture? We'll talk about Candace Owens and what she's been saying and doing. Also, Tucker Carlson. He now, again, has interviewed another person he shouldn't be interviewing, this time a guy who was from Minnesota who's now moved here to Tennessee, a pastor who is taking on dispensationalists and those of us who are Christian Zionists. Of course, apparently this guy believes the rapture happened back in AD 70, or is at least a partial preterist. So, got a lot to talk about with her tonight. And then former Congressman Steve King is going to join us. He basically got the Trump treatment before people knew about the Trump treatment. He was called all kinds of things, white supremacist, all kinds of horrible things. And the Uniparty apparently couldn't buy him. They couldn't buy him off. They couldn't control him. So apparently the Uniparty just had to use a article. There was a journalist, so-called, interviewing him that apparently wasn't recorded, and then have him saying something he never said. We're going to talk about that. And then the destruction of our Western culture, our foundation as a nation, a republic, the battle that still wages. Many things he was fighting for that Donald Trump is now doing. Stephen King, as a congressman, was doing this several years in advance and really helped to lay the foundation in many ways for the MAGA movement. I want to talk to him about a lot of that tonight. So a big show tonight. Now, before we go and do these interviews, and many of them are long format interviews again tonight, before we do that, let me remind you, we are brought to you by you. Please go to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. I do like the 1776 coffee, folks. It is not sprayed. It is organic. Go to worldviewcoffee.shop, worldviewcoffee.shop. Get a subscription and get your coffee every month. They got creamers and all kinds of stuff. Logan likes the protein. He's got the creamers there, the protein. That's there. Of course, we got the Melissa House GPA. That's the Gatatana. Memberships to this have spiked. And well, they should, because this is the phytoplankton that is so good for you, loaded with protein, amino acids, a lot of the trace minerals that we need. Remember, we give Dolly, she gets a half a scoop every morning on her food. I personally give it to her. One scoop is equivalent of 90 billion plant cells, 5 clinical trials behind it. We always show you Binks, the cat that had a tumor in its eye. They put it on Gatatana. Bye-bye. Remember the guy that developed this? He was actually raising it for his shellfish. They gave him a terminal diagnosis. He started eating it. His daughter was like, "What are you doing? This is for shellfish." They went in, did a surgery on it, looked at his lungs, did biopsies, took out 11 samples, sent them off, all came back benign. He went on to live until his 80s, another 10 years. When they were told him, they originally told him, you only got a little bit of time to live, and it's lights out. So he started eating the phytoplankton that he was raising for shellfish. Well, that led to David Hunter further researching this and then starting Global Plankton Alliance. Folks, this is serious stuff here. I drink it every day. You see me drink it at the news desk. So please check it out. MelissaHouseGPA.com, MelissaHouseGPA.com. Again, the memberships for this have spiked. In fact, just bring that down real quick and let me bring up another, let me bring up this here. This is the article about the guy that developed it. This was back in July of 2006. Man figures plankton stopped his rare cancer. Full article up in Canada. I'm not making claims. I'm just telling you what his story is. And David Hunter worked with him. And that's how we end up with MelissaHouseGPA.com today. So do what I do what Melissa does. We drink this every day. We also take Bella Grace every day. Now, I thought Melissa would make an appearance tonight, but it did not fit into her busy schedule. But we'll try to get her on here next week. No, that's still the plankton. Let me go over to the Bella Grace. Here we go. Let's go to Bella Grace, and that is right there. We'll click that. That'll open up the old Bella Grace page, which is MelissaHouseBG.com. Of course, by the way, if you want to become a distributor, a lot of you have. Some of you are making good money being a distributor, which means you just simply do what we do. Talk about it. Tell your friends about it. It's easy to talk to people about this because it has 80 clinical trials behind it. There is science behind this elixir. There it all is. And of course, the elixir is loaded with 3 powerful ingredients: collagen, peptides cut short so your body can absorb it, the astaxanthin, which crosses the brain-blood barrier that takes on the free radicals, and the cat's claw, that's an anti-inflammatory from a bark on a vine out of Peru. Melissa loves the skincare. She loves the weight management. This is the Bella Trim. This is all natural, but it's also great for your cardiac health. And again, Melissa loves it too, what it's done to her face. It's really helped to sculpt her face, particularly at the jawline. And a lot of people are like, "You've lost a lot of weight, Melissa." And she's like, "No, I really haven't. I've just got on my Bella Grace elixir and then the Bella Trim, which is really, I guess, taking some inflammation out of her face, made her jawline more pronounced. And but she's getting a lot of compliments about it. That's why I want to bring her on, like you guys see her. But we'll get that done hopefully next week. But this is also great for your cardio health. Logan's taking Bella Trim as well. It also takes on the stubborn belly fat, according to studies. She does take 2 of these every night, this restorative sleep. In fact, should we go to the Dolly cam? It almost looks like Dolly is on it right now. She's not. She's on nothing but her food and her Gatatana, but you would swear she was on the restorative sleep right now. She's like lights out, hanging off the MyPillow pet bed. I don't know, maybe the Dolly cam. The Dolly cam's not working tonight, I guess. I don't know. Kind of outfit are we running here, guys? Kind of Cracker Jack program are we running? I don't know. That still doesn't do it, boys. That just doesn't do it. Oh, well, tried. She's hanging right off the bed. But Melissa takes the Bella Grace restorative sleep, 2 gummies, help her stay asleep every night. So she's using a lot of their products, the restorative sleep, the Bella Trim, the skincare, and the elixir. Get a subscription to all of this and save. Get a subscription and save. MelissaHouseBG.com, MelissaHouseBG.com. All right, joining me now is our D.C. correspondent, Neil McCabe. Got a lot to talk about. Big victory tonight. Take a look at this. Supreme Court shuts down activist judge, lets Trump cut